So the next step I want to do is to take these pieces that I created and move it onto this site right here. Okay, so what I am going to do is to, let's see, I don't need this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to make a safety copy first. In order to do a safety copy, let's grab everything and copy it right to an area that I want to work on. I'm going to turn this site 180 degrees just so that I could see the slope right here. I guess I could have just rotated the model around, but since this thing is in this orientation, I'm just going to do that. So I'm going to also take these guys right here, my collided volumes that I made, Alt, hit the gumball, and make a safety copy. Okay. So at this point, I want to move these guys over on top of the site that I have here. Looks like the site is showing individual stuff. So what I'm going to do is to lock it so that I don't have to deal with any of that stuff right there. Okay. So I'm going to move this over, but before I move it over, I might want to group these all together so that I could just move them all at once. Okay, and instead of moving using gumball up and stuff, because if I just do, buildings get buried, right? So I need to have some of these pieces on top of these plateaus. I understand that topos are not actually plateaus, but we'll just see them that way for now. Okay. So if I say move, select object, select that corner point, and select that corner point right there, I have it at least on a level, right? Okay. But as you can see, some of these pieces are floating, and we don't want to do that. We kind of want every piece to be touching the ground or in the ground. So let's push this over this way a little bit. So this is now touching the ground right here. This is lifted up, and this part of this is buried. So that looks pretty good. Uh-oh, I did notice something weird right there. Yeah. Okay, so it probably is that when I took this piece and moved it, I probably just moved it 2 feet thinking it needed the 2 foot difference. But this is where the topo comes in, and this is where we say that every height has to be 2'8" difference. Okay, so I'm going to correct that mistake. So take that and then ungroup it for now. Take this piece and move it up 8 inches. So now that it should just be able to hover right on top of this level right here. Okay, so after I have that done, I think I can group these back together again. So if you need to do so, please do so. Okay. We could also take this piece. I know that we could argue that this volume right here and this long volume right here are coplanar at the bottom. Yes, that is the case. We could bring this up 2'8" as well. If we do that, we might stagger another set of topo. But for now, let's keep it like this. Okay, and try to move this a little bit more towards the center of the site, or we could go ahead and rotate this thing. I rotate this thing 45 degrees just for the heck of it, and move it along. Okay, and that seems to this piece is landing on this side, part of the site. All of this piece is landing on that part of the site. All of these pieces are landing on top of this part of the site. So that's not a bad plan. Okay, But here's the thing. If we rotate these pieces, the gumball will remain in the XY coordinate. And that would be kind of a difficult thing for you to maneuver your object, as you've probably found out in your solar gallery project. So instead, what you might want to do is to move the sight. So unlock the sight, select the sight, might maybe even have to group these together too. And then move that over, or rotate that 45 degrees, negative 45 degrees in my case. And that way, I could just use the gumball to move my building without worrying about any, without having to mess with the gumball settings. Okay, so that is not a bad plan. I know that some parts are floating right here, and we could take care of that in some other way. Or we can bring this back and in, making sure that that part is not buried into this part of the site, right? And that might be a pretty good solution. But if your object is not completely buried, that's perfectly fine, or completely buried and hovering some parts, that would be okay too. Okay, so find a good point, and you kind of want to keep this your project somewhere away from the edge of the site. That might be a better deal than having this thing right up to the property line, right? So there are a bunch of other ways to organize this site or the building onto the site. However, like I said, this is an example of how one might place these objects onto the slope. Okay, that being the case, we'll just leave it at that. And in your 101 section, we will go ahead and design your individual pieces. But for now, what we are doing is giving you instructions on how to place these items on the site and how to manipulate them and such. So that's all that this instruction is doing. Okay. Oh yes. One thing noted. When you rotate the site, make sure that you note somewhere. You could even type it onto your your model itself, that you move the thing 45 degrees, or you rotated the object 45 degrees. Okay. Oops. Something like that, just to remind yourself.